You said since you had the numbers, so can you give us the info on kind of what you're kind of, what
Okay.
those shredding employees, kind of what do they make per hour?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it's going to be working out to be really low. So the more adept people are going to be making on the order of $1 to $1.50 an hour. The less adept, you're probably talking about 25 cents an hour.
And then did you have
And that work, by the way, is piece rate. And so you have to work backwards and make comparisons to what a non-disabled person is able to achieve in the same time period. But it gets you to that end point.
And then did you also have information on your kind of executive salaries?
I can tell you mine. I am the second most highly paid person in the organization, and I make $60,000 a year. My boss makes more than I do, but I don't know the exact number. We are probably the only two people that you would consider executives in nature. The organization employs a total of 13 staff, and that includes direct care workers, and we have about 40 disabled people at any one time.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Rayfield.
Yeah, I just want to know a little bit more about the shredding process. So how big are the shredders?
We have two kinds. We have one that's probably vintage 1980 to 90. It's a freestanding unit. It's probably the size of this lectern and perhaps 3 feet wide. And you hand feed papers. And if you try to feed more than about 2 pages at a time, it's likely to jam. And you got to remove all the staples. And so the rate at which work is performed is relatively slow. But the comparisons, again, are to a non-disabled person using the same machine. We recently acquired some new machines. We're going mobile. These are slightly smaller. They're like, I think, 17 by 17 and about 30 inches tall. They have the capacity to shred up to 20 pages at a time and about 11 or 12 batches per minute, and you don't have to deal with paper clips, staples, or CDs.
And how many shredding machines do you have?
We have 4 of the old and 4 of the new. Compared to the trucks that you see floating around, we're really slow.
And yeah, one last follow-up. How many hours at a time do these folks work in the shredding?
It's varied. I think you'll find that the customary shift in the DD field, and I apologize, I keep forgetting to reply to the chairman and vice chair, but the customary shift in the DD field is on the order of 4 hours. Because of some recent rate changes, the state is in some ways now encouraging that be 5 hours. In our facility, on the shredding situation, everybody takes a very big break, sort of in the middle. And when we have sufficient paper to keep people busy, they're probably doing it for a total of about 3 to 3.5 hours per day.
Other questions? All right, Nikki, go ahead.
We work on productivities. We buy the large shredders. We buy the big equipment. Now I have someone with a disability who can be efficient and be efficient at that task. That's what makes all the difference for us. Let the machinery do the work, and I train the person on the machinery and the capability of that machinery. That helps bring the productivity up. Instead of getting a piece of an old slow-speed buffer and say, well, I've got more man hours because he's on a slow-speed buffer, I'm going to get him a riding buffer. I have an individual who cannot walk that spends 8 hours vacuuming, sitting on a machine at the airport, doing the carpets. That is a machine that is able to accommodate his disability, that brings him up to a productivity level that makes him successful. We will continually look at that realm, even in the 14C. But that's a burden we're always looking at. How do we get down to those details to make people successful?
Thank you, Chair Fagan, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Senator Sarah Gelster from Senate District 8, which includes the Mid-Valley. So we had a hearing yesterday on a bill that was very similar that talks about this issue related to the minimum wage. And I just wanted to put a couple of quick things on the record. The state of Vermont has no 14C certificates and no sheltered workshops. 80% of the people who were employed in the sheltered workshops in Vermont went on to get work in competitive environments at and oftentimes above the minimum wage. The other 20% were able to access quality and satisfactory other meaningful day programs during the day. As a result of those changes in Vermont, 38% of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Vermont are employed in competitive workplaces. That's twice the national average. So we can look at the state of Vermont and see that as scary as it is to make a transition, that transition works because we're investing in the things that work, in technology that works to make people efficient, and the training that works to make people skilled to go out and work in the environment. Transitions are always scary. These are the same fears we had with the closure of Fairview. And then I would just close on the issue of minimum wage, because as I said the other day, I believe it's a principle. A minimum wage is a minimum wage. Everyone is entitled to it. And this comes from the State Department of Labor website history of the minimum wage. FDR said this the night before he signed the minimum wage in one of his fireside chats. FDR, do not let any calamity howling executive with an income of $1,000 a day tell you that a wage of $11 a week is going to have a disastrous effect on all American industry. And then the Department of Labor website goes on to say, in light of the social legislation, Americans today may be astonished that a law with such moderate standards could have been thought so revolutionary. We have the chance here today to make progress, to say that no one deserves to make 25 cents an hour working on outdated machinery. This should not be a revolutionary idea. We have determined that we believe that Americans deserve a minimum wage. People with disabilities are Americans and Oregonians, and they too should access a minimum wage. So thank you for devoting so much time to this discussion.